What if I told you that just months ago, a young woman in the Philippines was on the verge of ending her life when a teenage boy in a red tracksuit appeared in her hospital room and told her exactly why she needed to keep living? What if this same teenager had been dead for nearly 2 decades, but continues to appear to people around the world, offering hope in their darkest moments? This is the emerging story of Saint Carlo Acutis and the ongoing reports of his appearances that continue to surface even after his canonization. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell, because what you're about to hear involves fresh testimonies, recent encounters, and the mysterious ways this millennial saint continues to reach across the veil between heaven and earth. Maria Santos is a 23-year-old nursing student from Manila. In early 2024, she found herself in a psychiatric ward after attempting to take her own life. Depression had consumed her for months. The pressures of nursing school, family expectations, and a series of personal losses had pushed her to a breaking point where she could see no reason to continue living. The doctors had stabilized her physically, but her mental state remained critical. She refused to speak to counselors, turned away visitors, and spent her days staring at the wall, waiting for an opportunity to try again. What happened on the night of March 15, 2024, would change everything. Maria was alone in her hospital room at approximately 2 a.m. when she became aware of someone else present. She looked toward the door, expecting a nurse on night rounds. Instead, she saw a young man standing near her bed. He appeared to be in his mid-teens, wearing casual clothes, specifically a red tracksuit and sneakers. What struck Maria immediately was that he seemed to be glowing, not with harsh light, but with a gentle radiance that made him clearly visible even though the room lights were off. Maria's first thought was that she was hallucinating, a side effect of the medication she had been given. But the young man spoke, and his words were too specific, too personal to be a product of her medicated mind. Tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced something that seemed impossible to explain naturally? Keep watching, because what this young man told Maria would prove he knew details about her life that no stranger could possibly know. The young man introduced himself simply. "My name is Carlo. I know why you're here, and I know what you've been thinking about doing." Maria felt fear mixed with curiosity. How could this teenager who had somehow entered a locked psychiatric ward know anything about her situation? Carlo continued speaking, and what he said next made Maria's heart stop. He described in detail 3 specific events from Maria's childhood that she had never told anyone. He mentioned the name of her deceased grandmother who had raised her. He referenced a promise Maria had made to that grandmother before she died, a promise to become a nurse and help people who were suffering. "You think your life has no purpose," Carlo said gently, "but you're wrong. Your grandmother is praying for you in heaven, and she sent me to remind you of your promise. There are people you haven't met yet who will live because you chose to live. Your story isn't finished, Maria. This dark chapter is not the ending." Maria started crying, overwhelmed by the specificity of what this stranger was telling her. She tried to call for the nurse, but Carlo raised his hand. "Before I go, I want you to do something for me. Look up my name tomorrow, Carlo Acutis. Learn about my life. You'll understand that I know what it's like to face death young, but I also know that God has a plan for every life, including yours." With those words, Carlo simply vanished. One moment he was standing beside her bed, the next moment the room was empty. Maria sat up, fully awake, certain that what had just happened was not a dream or hallucination. The details were too sharp, the emotional impact too profound, the information too accurate. When morning came, Maria asked the nurse for access to a computer. She typed Carlo Acutis into the search engine, and what she found made her gasp out loud. If you're finding this story as incredible as I am, hit that like button right now, and let me know in the comments if you've ever heard of Saint Carlo Acutis before this video. Because what Maria discovered would explain everything about her mysterious visitor. Carlo Acutis was a real person who had died in 2006 at the age of 15 from leukemia. The pictures Maria found online showed the same face she had seen in her hospital room, the same gentle smile, even the same red tracksuit in several photos. Carlo had been canonized as a saint just months earlier in September 2025. Reading about his life, Maria discovered that Carlo had been passionate about helping people understand that life has meaning, that God loves each person individually, and that suffering can be transformed into purpose. Maria learned that Carlo had been devoted to the Eucharist and had created a website documenting miracles to help people believe in God's active presence in the world. She read testimonies from other people who claimed Carlo had appeared to them in dreams or visions, usually during times of crisis or despair. The pattern was always the same. Carlo would appear, offer specific personal information that proved his message was supernatural, provide hope and direction, and then direct the person to learn about his life and faith. Maria spent hours reading everything she could find about this teenage saint, and with each article, each testimony, each detail, her own will to live grew stronger. By the time Maria's therapist arrived for their daily session, she was a different person. She told her therapist everything that had happened, fully expecting to be dismissed as delusional. Instead, the therapist, who happened to be Catholic, listened carefully and then said something remarkable. "Maria, I cannot tell you whether what you experienced was objectively real or a very vivid dream. But I can tell you this: whatever happened to you last night has given you hope where there was none before." That's what matters. Perhaps this Carlo Acutis, whether through a vision or through your subconscious mind connecting with his story, has given you a reason to choose life. Maria was discharged from the psychiatric ward 2 weeks later with a completely different outlook. She returned to nursing school, graduated with honors, and is currently working in a hospital's emergency department where she specializes in helping patients who come in with mental health crises. She keeps a prayer card of St. Carlo Acutis in her pocket at all times, and whenever she meets someone who is contemplating suicide, she tells them her story and gives them a card. Maria's testimony has been submitted to the Archdiocese of Manila for investigation, joining a growing file of similar reports from around the world. Share this video right now with someone who is struggling with depression, anxiety, or thoughts of self-harm. Let them know that hope is real and help can come from the most unexpected sources. But Maria's story is not isolated. Since Carlo's canonization in September 2025, reports of his appearances have increased dramatically. Church officials in multiple countries are documenting testimonies from people who claim to have encountered this young saint during moments of crisis. While the Church moves slowly and carefully in investigating such claims, the sheer volume and consistency of these reports is remarkable. November 2024, a teenage boy in Brazil named Lucas Farah reported that Carlo appeared to him after a devastating soccer injury that doctors said would end his athletic career permanently. Lucas had torn his ACL, meniscus, and several other ligaments in his knee. Multiple surgeons agreed that even with surgery, he would never play competitive soccer again. For Lucas, whose entire identity and future plans centered around soccer, this diagnosis was devastating. Lucas fell into a deep depression, refusing physical therapy and alienating his friends and family. One night, unable to sleep because of both physical pain and emotional anguish, Lucas got out of bed and hobbled to his computer. He was researching methods of suicide when his computer screen suddenly went black. When it came back on, instead of his search results, he saw a webpage about Carlo Acutis. Lucas had never heard of Carlo before. He tried to close the page and return to his search, but the browser wouldn't respond. Frustrated and curious, Lucas began reading about this teenage saint who loved soccer, computers, and his friends just like Lucas did. As Lucas read Carlo's story, he felt something shift inside him. Here was someone who had faced death at 15, who had suffered physical pain from leukemia, who had to let go of all his earthly plans and dreams. Yet Carlo had faced it all with faith, hope, and even joy. Lucas found himself crying, not from despair this time, but from a strange mixture of grief and hope. Then something extraordinary happened. Lucas felt a hand on his shoulder, a physical sensation so real that he spun around expecting to see his father or brother. Instead, standing behind him was a teenager in casual clothes who looked exactly like the pictures of Carlo Acutis he had just been viewing online. Drop a comment below and tell me, what situation in your life seems hopeless right now? Because what Carlo told Lucas next will give you a perspective that could change everything. Carlo spoke to Lucas with the casual familiarity of a friend. "Hey man, I know you think your life is over because you can't play soccer professionally, but there's something way more important you're supposed to do with your life. You're going to be a physical therapist who helps injured athletes recover, and you're going to be really good at it because you'll understand exactly what they're going through." Lucas stammered, trying to form words, but Carlo continued, "I'm not saying your knee will be healed miraculously. I'm saying that even this injury is part of a bigger plan. Start the physical therapy. Go back to school. Study hard, trust me on this." Before Lucas could respond, Carlo was gone. The room was empty again. Lucas sat in stunned silence, then immediately woke his parents and told them everything. His father, a devout Catholic, recognized this as a potential supernatural encounter and contacted their parish priest. The priest listened carefully, then told Lucas, "I cannot verify whether this was a true vision or a very powerful psychological experience. But the message you received is consistent with Catholic teaching about God's providence and finding purpose in suffering. I suggest you follow the advice you received and see what happens." Lucas did exactly that. He threw himself into physical therapy with new determination. He enrolled in university to study physical therapy and sports medicine. His knee did not heal miraculously. He still can't play professional soccer. But he discovered that Carlo was right. He has a gift for helping injured athletes recover, both physically and psychologically. He understands their pain, their fear, their sense of lost identity because he lived through it himself. Lucas graduated in December 2024 and is currently working with a sports medicine clinic in Sao Paulo. He estimates he tells his story of Carlo's appearance to at least one patient per week, usually athletes who are struggling with the psychological impact of career-ending injuries. These two stories, Maria in the Philippines and Lucas in Brazil, represent just a small sample of the testimonies that have emerged since Carlo's canonization. Reports have come from the United States, Italy, Poland, India, Kenya, and Australia. The encounters follow remarkably similar patterns. They occur during moments of crisis or despair. Carlo appears as a teenager in casual clothes, often the red tracksuit. He provides specific personal information that validates the supernatural nature of the encounter. He offers hope and practical direction, and he encourages the person to learn about his life and faith. What makes these recent testimonies particularly significant is their timing. Carlo Acutis has now been officially recognized as a saint by the Catholic Church. His holiness is not in question, his place in heaven is confirmed, and his power to intercede for the faithful is established. These ongoing reports of appearances serve not to strengthen the case for his sainthood. That case is closed and decided, but rather to demonstrate that sainthood is not a historical designation. It's a present reality. Saints are not dead people we remember. They are living members of the Church who continue to act, to care, and to help from their place in heaven. The Church's response to these testimonies has been measured but attentive. Bishop Antonio Marino of the Diocese of Rome, which oversees matters related to saints buried in Italy, including Carlo's tomb in Assisi, released a statement in January 2025 acknowledging the reports of Carlo's appearances. While not officially endorsing any specific testimony as verified apparitions, Bishop Marino noted that such reports are consistent with the historical pattern of saints appearing to the faithful, especially in the years immediately following their canonization. He encouraged anyone who believes they have encountered Saint Carlo to document their experience in writing, seek spiritual direction from a trusted priest, and above all, focus on the message received rather than the experience itself. What's particularly interesting about the recent Carlo Acutis testimonies is the demographic they involve. Unlike many saints whose apparitions are primarily reported by elderly, devout Catholics, Carlo's appearances are overwhelmingly reported by young people, teens and young adults who are facing modern struggles, mental health crises, career setbacks, identity confusion, addiction, and despair. This pattern makes sense given Carlo's own life experience and his recognized role as patron saint of youth and the internet generation. Father Paolo Medici, who served as vice postulator for Carlo's cause of canonization, has been collecting and documenting these testimonies. In an interview given in February 2025, Father Medici stated, "We are seeing something remarkable with Carlo. The testimonies coming in are not from people seeking religious experiences or claiming mystical gifts. They are from desperate young people who had never heard of Carlo before he appeared to them. Many were not even practicing their faith, yet Carlo finds them in their darkness and brings them light. This is entirely consistent with his mission during his earthly life and apparently continues to be his mission from heaven." The increasing reports have led to what some are calling the Carlo effect among young Catholics. Youth groups around the world have organized nights of prayer specifically asking Saint Carlo to appear to or help their friends who are struggling. While church officials caution against treating saints like spiritual vending machines, they acknowledge that this surge of devotion among young people represents something genuinely positive. A generation that often seems disconnected from traditional faith is finding a bridge to belief through a saint who spoke their language and understood their world. But these recent visions also raise important questions that deserve serious consideration. How do we distinguish between genuine supernatural encounters and psychologically generated experiences? What role does expectation play when someone in crisis learns about a saint known for appearing to people in crisis? Could some or all of these testimonies be explained through natural psychological mechanisms rather than supernatural intervention? The Catholic Church's position on such questions is both humble and wise. The Church acknowledges that genuine supernatural events can and do occur, but she also recognizes that many reported experiences may have natural explanations. What matters most is not whether a vision can be verified as objectively supernatural, but whether it produces genuine spiritual fruit, conversion, healing, growth in virtue, and deeper faith in God. By this standard, the recent Carlo testimonies are bearing remarkable fruit, even if we cannot definitively prove their supernatural origin. Maria in the Philippines chose life and is now saving other lives. Lucas in Brazil found new purpose and is helping others through their suffering. Dozens of similar testimonies report conversions, healings, renewed faith, and transformed lives. Whether Carlo literally appears to these people or whether God uses the memory and example of Carlo to reach desperate souls through dreams and psychological experiences, the outcome is the same. Lives are being saved, and souls are being drawn closer to God. Share this video with anyone who needs to know that saints are not dead historical figures, but living, active members of God's family who continue to care for us and help us from heaven. What practical lessons can we draw from these recent testimonies about Saint Carlo Acutis? First, they remind us that heaven is not distant or disconnected from earthly struggles. The saints in heaven are intensely interested in our lives, our pain, and our needs. They want to help us, and God sometimes permits them to do so in dramatic ways. Second, these stories emphasize that no situation is truly hopeless. Maria was minutes away from another suicide attempt when Carlo appeared. Lucas had given up on life after his injury, yet both found hope and purpose through their encounters. If you're facing a crisis that seems insurmountable, remember that help can come from unexpected sources, sometimes even from heaven itself. Third, the Carlo testimonies highlight the importance of saints who are relatable to modern people. The reason Carlo resonates so powerfully with young people today is that he was one of them. He lived in the computer age, faced modern temptations, understood contemporary culture, yet chose holiness. This combination makes him uniquely positioned to reach people who might not connect with more ancient saints. Fourth, these stories remind us to pay attention to the nudges, coincidences, and unexpected encounters in our lives. When Maria's computer inexplicably displayed Carlo's webpage, Lucas could have dismissed it as a technical glitch. Instead, he paid attention, and that attention opened the door to a life-changing experience. As we close this exploration of recent St. Carlo Acutis visions, consider this. Whether or not you ever experience a dramatic appearance or vision, St. Carlo is available to intercede for you right now. The same power that appeared to Maria and Lucas, whether through literal apparition or through God working in mysterious ways, is accessible through simple prayer. You don't need a crisis or a vision to experience Carlo's intercession. You just need to ask. Before you close this video, make sure you subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. We're committed to sharing current stories of faith, saints, and supernatural experiences that demonstrate God's ongoing activity in our world. Make sure to like this video right now and share it with anyone who is struggling, anyone who has lost hope, or anyone who needs to know that heaven is real and saints are active. Comment below if you've ever experienced something you believe was supernatural, or share your own devotion to St. Carlo Acutis. Remember, the same saint who appeared to desperate young people in the Philippines and Brazil is available to help you in whatever struggle you're facing. The same God who permits these visions and encounters wants you to know that you are not alone. Your life has purpose, and help is available when you ask for it in faith. St. Carlo Acutis spent his 15 years on earth showing people that God is real, present, and actively involved in human life. From heaven, he continues that same mission, appearing to those who need him most, offering hope in darkness, and pointing people toward the faith that can transform suffering into purpose. Whether through dramatic visions or quiet answers to prayer, St. Carlo Acutis continues to be what he was during his life, a bridge between heaven and earth, a friend to those who struggle, and a powerful reminder that holiness is possible in every generation, including ours. Let his ongoing intercession and these recent testimonies inspire you to believe more boldly, pray more confidently, and trust more deeply in the God who sends his saints to help us in our time of need.